Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Miss Chinenye Oragu. Good afternoon, Mr. Oke Ebuchuku.
Hello, everybody.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
My chairman.
I'm very fine. I'm very fine.
Excellent. We are waiting for the others, I guess.
Yes, we are. Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Zogumbi. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.
Mrs. O.
Hey, my person, my people person. How now?
I'm fine, though. Well done.
Thank you. You too. Long journey, eh? But we're
Yes.
getting there.
Yes, thanks. I guess we are waiting for our colleague from the hotel.
Sorry?
I don't.
Power
Yes.
on.
We're waiting for
Bluetooth mode. Third.
Oops. Yeah, my filler.
Okay, I believe we can proceed. Miss Barrister Inua will be joining us shortly. So we'll proceed now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. and thank you for joining us on today's webinar on the perspectives of the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Act 2022. My name is Efe Otiko, and I am honored to be your moderator today. We are gathered here to discuss a pivotal piece of legislation that would shape the future of the travel, hospitality, and tourism industry in Nigeria. So to kick things off, I would like to introduce Mrs. Chineye Oragu, who is the chairman of the Travel, Tourism and Hospitality Committee, NBA-SBL. So she'll be providing us with the opening remarks, as well as the significance of our gathering today, to gain the different perspectives on this act from regulators, lawyers, and other professionals in the tourism and hospitality industry. Mrs. Oragu, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Efe. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We greet everyone here present. Thank you for taking our time to be with us today and joining us on this important webinar where we're going to discuss the National Institute for Tourism and Hospitality Act 2022. I welcome all our speakers, our guest speakers, Mrs. Miriam Inua, Mr. Oke Buchu, Mrs. Abiola Ogumbi. Thank you very much for honoring us with your presence. I am deeply honored to be here as the chairman of the Travel, Tourism and Hospitality Committee to extend our warm welcome to you at this webinar. Today, we're going to be delving into a significant piece of legislation that holds potential to reshape the landscape of the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry in Nigeria. The National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Act 2022 marks a turning point in our nation's commitment to nurturing, educating, certifying, and registering professionals within this vital sector. The objectives of the Act are very clear and they are outlined. It says it encompasses the education, training, certification, and registration of personnel in the fields of hospitality, travel, and tourism. These objectives aim to equip practitioners with necessary skills to navigate the ever-evolving dynamics in the tourism and hospitality sector. Furthermore, the Act is designed to develop basic, intermediate, and advanced skills, thereby enhancing the competencies of personnel in the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry. It envisions maximizing the economic gains of the sector, not only for Nigeria, but also for the broader African and global communities. So as we gather here today, we must appreciate that this act is not just about rules and regulations. It's about building a robust human resource base that will drive the success of our industry for generations to come. So by certifying and registering qualified personnel, the act ensures that our industry maintains the highest standards of professionalism and service quality, and ensures that we now play on the global scale. So today's discussion promises to be rich and insightful. We have assembled a panel of experts, including regulators, lawyers, as well as practitioners. So we're going to hear from each and every person their perspective as how this act affects them and affects the committee and Nigeria in the broader sense. So their valuable insights will help us understand the broader implications and nuances of this legislation. In conclusion, let's approach today's discussions with an open mind and a shared commitment to the growth and the prosperity of the hospitality, travel, tourism, and the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry in Nigeria. Thank you very much. So I call on Efe to take it up from here.
Thank you, Mr. Oragu, for setting the stage for our discussion today. Now, let me introduce our distinguished panel of guest speakers. Each one brings a unique perspective to our discussion today. First up, we have Barrister Miriam Inua. Barrister Inua is the legal advisor and director of legal services at the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. She holds an LLB obtained in 1994 from the University of Maiduguri and was called to the Nigerian bar in 1996. She obtained her postgraduate degree in tourism management in 2010 from the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. Her working experience spans about 30 years. The better part of her career was spent in the tourism, travel, and hospitality training and administration. She had worked at the Ministry of Justice, Kano State from 1995 to 1996 for her National Youth Service, and at the Ministry of Justice, Maiduguri, as a state counsel from 1996 to 1997. She then went on to work at the Nigeria Social Insurance Trust Fund from 1997 to 2006, and thereafter at the Women and Youth Support Organization as a Board of Trustee member, as well as a secretary from 2006 to 2009. Her expertise has served her well as a quality assurance assessor of the National Vocational Qualifications Framework, now known as the Nigerian Skills Qualification Framework. She's also a member of the Federation of Women Lawyers and the Institute of Tourism Professionals. Next up, we have Mrs. Abiola Kudirat Ogumbi. Mrs. Ogumbi is a legal practitioner, founder, and managing director of SJ Tours and Allied Services. She's on a mission to leverage tourism for positive change, fostering integrity, character, and trust within communities. Her journey began in 1986 as a legal practitioner at Ajumo Gobia, Okeke, Oyebode, and Aluko. Later in 1991, she joined the Nigerian Chamber of Commerce as its first CEO, promoting commerce, cooperation, within Nigeria and its member states. Recognizing the power of travel to build cultural awareness and unity, she founded SJ Tours and Allied Services, focusing on West Africa's rich history, culture, and people. Mrs. Ogumbi actively participates in tourism conferences and workshops, advocating for its importance in the ECOWAS sub-region. Mrs. Ogumbi's vision extends to Alpha Oasis Ventures, where she champions the trees concept, emphasizing trust, collaboration, and synergies for both positive change in society and the environment. Next up, we have Mr. Oke Ebuchu, I beg your pardon. Mr. Ebuchu is the managing partner of SBL Legal, CLP Legal. He started his career as a litigator, briefly practicing as a federal prosecutor between 1992 and 1993, and thereafter as a civil, commercial, and maritime litigator in the then law firm of Ukpong and Omotosho, now CLP Legal, where he was elevated to partner in 2001. Energetic and versatile, Mr. Ebuchu expanded his expertise and advised many clients both in Nigeria and multinationals on several matters, including project finance, capital markets, corporate structuring and restructuring, and tourism and hospitality. Mr. Ebuchu was a member of the Council of the NBA section of Business Law and was the second chairman of the Travel, Tourism, and Hospitality Committee. In year 2018, he served as the chairman of the Conference Planning Committee of the 12th Annual Business Law Conference of the NBA section of Business Law. He is a member of several associations, including the International Bar Association. Finally, we have Mrs. Chineye Oragu. Mrs. Oragu, our esteemed chairman of the Travel, Tourism, and Hospitality Committee, is a distinguished lawyer with expertise in corporate finance, tax, advisory, and travel, tourism, and hospitality. She graduated with top honors from the University of Nigeria in 2006, was admitted into the Nigerian Bar in 2007, and holds an MBA from the University of Suffolk. Mrs. Oragu's impressive career includes practice in top-tier law firms, founding her own full-service law firm, Calm Hill Partners, in 2016, and advising on numerous finance transactions. Notably, Mr. Oragu has been a prominent figure in the legal community, holding leadership roles in various committees, including travel, tourism, and hospitality. She's also deeply committed to the empowerment and leadership initiatives, serving on boards and founding networks for professional women. In recognition for her outstanding contributions, Mrs. Oragu received the Nigerian Rising Star Award in 2018 and has been listed among the 100 leading female lawyers in 2023 by Courtroom Mail. We are very fortunate to have such accomplished professionals with us today, and I look forward to hearing their insights. So to start off the conversation, I would like to invite our first guest speaker, Barrister Inuwa, to share her perspectives on the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Act 2022. This is Barrister Inuwa, you have the floor. Okay, I can see that your mic isn't connected, ma. So please, we would need you to connect your mic. Because we are limited with time, I think it's best to proceed with the next speaker, and afterwards, Barrister Inuwa would join us. So, without further ado, we have Mrs. Ogumbi, who will be sharing our perspectives with us now. Mrs. Ogumbi, you have the floor. Please unmute yourself, ma. We can't hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, friends, and all those who are joining us online. Well, I'm starting first. I had hopes that the company secretary of NAUTO would have spoken first, but that's fine. I'm speaking from a perspective of, obviously, first, a Nigerian bound with all other Nigerians by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As a practitioner in the industry, as a former student, I was actually in the institute in year 2015, 2016, and obviously now as a hopeful Nigerian. First, I would say that definitely we do need NAOTO. We do need that act to drive its objectives. And its objectives are clearly set out in part 1. 4 objectives, and that has to do with educate, train, certify, register personnel in the field, develop basic, intermediate, and advanced skills to upgrade personnel, maximize the gains of the industry, the economy of Nigeria, and develop that human resource base. And then, of course, certify and register. And it goes on to say that the act applies through Nigeria. It is trite and it's well known. In fact, I've been at a conference today as well, a 2-day conference, where it talks about the tourism industry. And I'll just also marshal some of the points that were raised today. And it's known in the industry and possibly in areas that are knowledgeable about this particular industry. First, it's a people-driven and consumed industry. It's contributing 10.4% of the world's GDP and 10.6% of all jobs. The largest industry in the world. And then more recent information is 1 in 4 new jobs created by the were created by the travel and tourism industry over the last 5 years. And of course, I'm quoting what was written out there, that tourism is important for nation building. Over here, in Nigeria, we have the mantra, tourism is life. What does that mean? It means that we're talking about manpower development. And that is what NAOTO, this act, is meant to do. It goes beyond that. Manpower, it's the focus to address what exactly this act has been set up to achieve, both on the part of the government that set it up and the people who are going to run it, the consumers of the skills that will be impacted in that space. In going through the act, and it's not just this act, I think it's something we do, and I think we need to challenge ourselves. Well, I need to challenge my colleagues in practice that we really need to go look at some of these acts, because some of there are too many clauses. And sometimes these clauses deviate or they cloud the purpose. The objectives and the application of this act. And you know, these are rules and laws, and these are acts, these are legal instruments that were given to non-lawyers to operate. We're giving them to non-lawyers to operate. And without necessarily the necessary enlightenment as to what they can pick. Let's look at some of the clauses. I've gone to 1. And then, of course, let's look at the functions, clause 4. You know, there are too many, but somewhere in there is embedded 4H, consulting. I'm not sure the institute should be given the power to consult. This is what happens when you give you put too many clauses that sometimes we deviate from the object. Then we look at 5 as well. And we go on. I'm trying as much as possible not to be a lawyer, but you know, sometimes this cap is there. There are too many clauses. I'd like to give an example of, like I said, I need personnel for my business. I need to be trained. I need to be rekitted. We need to get this country. Tourism, by the way, is the connector. It's the missing loop in so many things because it's people driven. That's where you impact people's mindsets. That's where you impact people's attitudes. That's where you get people to solve issues. When you talk about you look at the whole value chain, it's all about the existence, how we exist, down to how we pay our taxes without a problem. If things are done and this is the institute that's been empowered to ensure that that space is achieved. That space is achieved. I'd like to suggest something. And I think I've suggested it, and I believe the NBA indeed is, in principle, is thinking about this, in that the NBA as an association needs to work with some of these key institutions at a time like this. We're a developing country. What we do now may not necessarily be what we need later. How did I find myself 2015, 2016 at the National Institute? It was all part of this passion and ability to become a change agent. I walked into that space and I said, no, this cannot be what is being presented and where we're going to raise the reception of a country. It can't be. I asked myself severally during that 1 year, the first few months, if it was the best use of my time. But it turned out to be the best use of over life. Yes, it was, because it gave an insight into some of the things that as lawmakers we do not see. We legislate without necessarily appreciating what the issues are. We legislate without necessarily knowing the importance of why we are legislating. We legislate without necessarily knowing where are we at this point and what do we need to address. What do we need to address? We need to look. Fortunately now, we now have a tourism industry, which would probably be the connector between all ministries and all facets. I describe it as the shepherd industry. That came to me, the shepherd industry, because it impacts the health, education, environment. All facets are impacted by this industry. And this act is where the manpower is produced. We talk about our customer service. The customer service comes from the regulations or from the impact of this particular institute and how it is carried out. They cannot do it alone. They cannot do it alone. So sometimes these clauses are too many. Simplify this. Let's simplify it so that you give avenue for improvement. You give avenue for innovation. Because you see, these clauses we've put out here sometimes, it can be restrictive. It can be restrictive. And it doesn't enable that evolution to evolve organically, taking into consideration where we are at this point in time. It's a brilliant, it's meant to be. And then also, there's so much overlap. They overlap. You have the NTDC, you have the NAOTO, you have the culture, and you have so many of those. So when you've put some of these clauses in here, you need to get NAOTO to be the key to look through this. Can you imagine if it works the way it should work, the kind of data that we will be receiving to enable this country and continent develop, and possibly even the world, because we're all over there. Nigerians are everywhere. Redevelop, refocus, because this is an industry that first, most of the people who would be engaged would be passion driven, because that's some part of it. You have to be passion driven. So those are people that are able to hold the goal of what binds us in our constitution. Hold the goal. That's what this is. And this is the development of the manpower. I had practiced for some time before, in 1999 thereabout, but I went into NAOTO in 2015, 2016. I realized that I was losing income. There were areas that I had not wrapped my mind around that were actually what I was meant to be doing. And then another thing that we need to be very mindful of is because we can legislate, but what is the practical implementation of this? My class, and this is important, my class, because the lawyers have said are the catalysts, we need to interpret these laws. We need to hold hands and ensure this is done. There were 19 of us that enrolled hospitality and tourism management, the postgraduate diploma. Of the 19 of us, I think there were 3 or 4 of us that registered for tourism. That's the one that you can, as a tour guide, you can just set up immediately. The other 15 were either coming from the hotels or the institutions or the beverage companies and all. And there was also that emphasis, which we've also put in this act, on that certification, as opposed to the practical acquisition of knowledge, which we see cut across most of our institutions. And then, of course, one of us passed on, and we colleagues, the simple first aid that is required because she did mention some of her symptoms. She was taking a lot of Coke. In fact, the joke was, you're drinking too much Coca-Cola. But at that time, we did not even realize that is also a health challenge. So you can imagine if we get this right in training manpower, focus on training manpower. I think I'll rest my case, as we say here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ogumbi, for your remarkable insights and your suggestion for the NBA to work alongside with these institutions like the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. So I will be moving on to our next speaker, Mr. Oke Egbuchu. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful that at least some movement was made to enact this act, but I was concerned immediately because tourism is not within the competence of the National Assembly. So I was alarmed. I said, what are we going to do about this? After scanning through the act, I felt confident that at the very least, the objective of manpower training, which is education, should not be affected by the lack of powers of the National Assembly to legislate on tourism matters. So to that extent, I think I am happy and grateful that the extensive training powers of NIHOTO that is there would be very beneficial to the country. But beyond that, I'm afraid that the act may not stand judicial scrutiny. It has even powers of regulation. If you look at Section 5(1)H, the NIHOTO wants to regulate the industry. How can you regulate the industry when it is not within your competence? So I would not pursue the aspect of regulation if I were NIHOTO. I would keep silent on it. As we speak, for some years now, some states have already enacted state laws regulating the industry. In Lagos, for instance, you have the hospitality licensing law, which licenses and regulates hospitality outfits, event centers, hotels, and all that. And they do have classification provisions for these hotels and event centers. So if NIHOTO attempts to regulate these outfits, they will meet with stiff resistance from the states. And there's going to be only one winner, and the states will certainly win that battle. I was also concerned with the qualifications for the office of the Director General of NIHOTO. It only provides for a degree holder or an HND holder. Then we talk about relevant, some sort of relevant experience or something like that. It's quite strange. The DG is the chief executive, but the chairman, who is not a permanent, we're just the chairman, and we only probably sit on the board 4 or 5 times in a year. That person must have a degree in hospitality. That person must have 15 years experience in the industry. The chairman, who is part-time, must have industry experience. The DG, who is full-time, we only have a BSc or HND. I mean, it looked odd to me. I thought the DG should have better qualifications than the chairman and not the other way around. While at the very least, the DG should have industry experience of at least 10 years or 15 years, like the chairman should have, as provided by the Act. So that is another area that bothers me. It would seem to me that the government just wanted a situation where they could appoint anybody that has a degree or HND as DG, which shouldn't be. This is an industry that requires knowledge, and industry knowledge should be a factor that the DG, a qualification that the DG must have in order to run NIHOTO. Then I was also concerned with the, how will I put it? The industry, the NIHOTO Act seeks to professionalize the industry. And in doing that, it's supposed to also enforce discipline. I was concerned about this professionalization of the industry. I welcome it, but I was concerned. Why am I concerned? All professions, we professionalize it ourselves. ICANN, MBA, name it, stockbrokers. It is the professionals themselves that are in charge, not government. They establish it, they professionalize it, then subsequently they go and charter it, i.e. get the National Assembly to enact laws backing the registration, from registration, let me put it this way, from registration as a regulatory, self-regulatory body they go ahead to charter, which means it is backed by law. Then they are the ones who run it. And they are the ones who provide all the systems in place. But here, it is coming straight from government. And the industry is quite varied, from hospitality to travel to arts to entertainment. I don't know to what extent this professionalism will work. What are you professionalizing? Is it every facet of it? Almost everything we do involves tourism. So I'm not yet sure from the act, maybe when they bring out regulations, what they truly want to professionalize there. Is it the management aspect? Is it, how will I put it? Is it the tower aspect? Is it all of them? We wait to see what the institute will do when they come out with their regulations and we have more details of it. Otherwise, I am all for professionalism and professionalization of the industry, but I do not think you can have one professional body for tourism practitioners. There will be several bodies, like the finance industry. You have stockbrokers, you have bankers, you have insurers. They all have their own separate specialties, but they're all under finance. So I don't know how that will work, but we wait and see. And beyond that, there are also powers to maintain discipline of the professions and the members of the institute. I was also concerned about that. You have an investigative panel, which is fine. That is an internal affair of the institute. Then you have a tribunal established by law to adjudicate on matters arising from misconduct or other matters, other issues. You have a situation where the DG, the chairman, and board members are members of the tribunal. They preside over the tribunal. You only have 2 members that can come in from the industry that they will invite to be part of the tribunal. I don't know how the executive that runs the hot can also be the judge in matters that involve adjudication. And it would seem also that they will be the prosecutors anyway of whoever is in trouble, assuming there is a case of misconduct. So I don't know whether this will stand up to the scrutiny of the Nigerian Constitution in terms of the fair hearing provisions. So I love the fact that we have made progress. We have an act to train people in the industry. I agree with Mrs. Ogubuyi. This act should have focused completely on training of manpower and nothing else. I think it is biting too much, and some of these provisions will clearly prove to be unconstitutional. I can imagine Lagos State and Cross River State in particular, the two states that challenged the federal government several years ago, daring to go back to court to challenge them once more, to tell them that you don't even have powers to do anything, to enact any law relevant to this industry. But I think the training will survive because it has to do with education. There is nothing stopping anybody, private or public, from setting up training institutions to train in any particular industry. It's education. So that should survive. How many of the other provisions will survive if challenged is open for debate. But certainly, one thing I'm sure is that they cannot regulate the industry. And it appears somebody sneaked that thing in there, because you have the powers to regulate generally, but there's nothing else said about any type of regulation apart from manpower, membership, professional bodies, and all those kind of things. But you have powers to enact regulations. So maybe that's where they want to use to regulate the industry, but it will fail for the simple reason that National Assembly cannot legislate on tourism matters. I think I'll rest for now and take up more issues later during the question and answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable insights. I believe Mrs. Miriam Inua is available now. So, Mrs. Inua, you have the floor. Mrs. Inua, we can't hear you. Mrs. Inua, you have the floor, please. In the meantime, while we wait for Mrs. Inua, Mr. Okay Ebuchu has his hands up, so we'll be taking your comments if you have any.
Hello, you want me to, hello?
Sir, oh, I saw your hand up, so I thought maybe you had something.
No, sorry about that,
Okay, okay, sir. All right, so we'll be moving on to our next speaker. We'll be moving on to Mrs. Chinenye Oragu to be sharing her views with us, please.
Thank you, FA. Thanks, everyone, for your active participation so far. And we have really had very good insights from Mr. Gumbi and Mr. Mbuchu. I particularly want to emphasize the issue of the constitutionality of the Act, or some provisions of the Act, because as practitioners, as legal practitioners, that is the first thing that comes to bear. Is this Act in line with the Constitution? So we have the case of AG Federation and AG Lagos States, where it was held that the federal government does not have the power to legislate on tourism, but on tourist traffic, which is interpreted as immigration. And to an extent, you see that some of the provisions of this Act tend to legislate on tourism. I believe that because they are aware of those judgments of the courts, and they are aware that there might be issues, there is a section 3.4, which tries to protect some of the things they have done, make it subject to the Constitution. So it provides that this Act establishes a benchmark subject to the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, or any other act enacted by the National Assembly for the training, certification, and registration of hospitality and tourism personnel in Nigeria. So by this particular provision, they are saying, see, we are subject to the Constitution, we are subject to any other act, in quotes, we are not looking for trouble. So I think that is will happen to them. Also, moving on, some things that came to mind. If you look at the composition of the board has, the DG of the institute. It prescribes who the chairman should be, the qualifications, and then talks about representatives from different did not see anything on a representative from the NBA, from the so I think that is an issue.
Yeah, me now. Hello?
It's very important that consideration is given to the position for a legal practitioner to be involved, to guide, in the implementation, even guide them properly when it comes to how to go about enacting or, giving life to some of these provisions. So I believe that that is a gap. And if there's an amendment to the Act, we can even say, not because I'm the chairman, but we can always have a provision that says the chairman of the Travel and Hospitality Committee of the SBL will be part of the board. So this way, the legal practitioners are able to bring to bear their experience and their drafting skills and their position on the law. The Act also talks about registration of fellows, associates, and registered members entitled to practice as hospitality, travel, and tourism professionals in Nigeria. This is good, but we also have to be very careful because we have seen that so many of these institutes come up and their emphasis now ends up being getting fees, training fees, membership fees from persons, rather than the objective for which institute was set up. Mrs. Inowa is here, and I think she's ready to speak, so I'm going to give way for her to speak shortly. But it's very important that we stress it, especially as the regulator is here, that emphasis should be made on continuing legal education and proper training, and not just advertising roles. You see some of these institutes, 300,000, 400,000 to be a fellow, and they don't really care if you're really, passed or done the proper thing to get to that place or to hold that certification. So it's just like a note of warning. I see Mrs. Inowa's hand is up. I think let her speak, and then I can conclude later, maybe during the comment section. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ragu, for shedding light on the constitutionality of some of the provisions of the Act, as well as the need for training of institutions such as the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism. So Mrs. Inowa is ready now, so you have the floor, ma. Mrs. Inowa, you have the floor.
Hello?
Good afternoon, ma. We can hear you.
Okay, good afternoon.
You can proceed, ma.
Okay. I'm sorry for joining late. Let me start by saying that hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
We can hear you, madam. Please proceed.
The National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism, hello?
Head, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. So the National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism Act, Establishment Act number 22. Before I talk of the establishment of the NAHOTO Act, let me look at a brief of the legal framework of tourism in Nigeria. Not much has been done on our legal legislation in respect to tourism, as we know. The only 2 or 3 legislations that we have existing in tourism before now, that recently we have the acts and our sister organization, the TDA now, is first promulgation of the tourism decree was in 1976, decree 54, that established the Nigerian Tourism Board. After that, until 1979, when you have decree 77, establishing the Commission of Museum and Monuments. Then the last one was in, before now, was in 1992, Decree 81, that replaced Decree 54 and transformed the Nigerian Tourism Board to Nigeria Tourism Development Corporation, until recently that they repealed their bill from that 1992, there was nothing, no any legislation in the tourism or hospitality sector. Until recently that the NTDA now repealed their acts, and also NIHOTO. So NIHOTO, let me focus now on NIHOTO. The National Institute for Hospitality and Tourism is a product of the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and ILO, International Labour Organization, and the federal government of Nigeria. Tripartite agreement signed in 1987, and NIHOTO commenced its operation in 1988. So as far back as that, NIHOTO has been in operation and has been, okay, let me talk of NIHOTO operation before I talk of how we have been trying to get our enabling law until recently. So the tripartite agreement that was signed between the UNDP, ILO, and the federal government is to serve, NIHOTO is to serve as the West African sub-region. So basically, it was a deliberate, comprehensive approach for tourism development in bridging the demand skills gap for craft supervisory and managerial personnel services. So since inception, NIHOTO has been providing skills training program, building capacity for both the private and the public sector. We also, NIHOTO is also the Sector Skill Council coordinator that addresses the much experienced demand skills gap through coordinating private sector employers for demand occupational trades. So this demand for occupational trade, NIHOTO is coordinating the private sector to develop the occupational standard to be used in the sector. So NIHOTO is coordinating that. So the NIHOTO Act that was recently passed this February is a legislation that was drafted. The bill was drafted by both the Ministry of Justice and the Nigerian Law Reform Commission. So since the 6th Assembly, NIHOTO has been pursuing its acts through the 7th Assembly, 8th Assembly, until the 9th Assembly that we got it. So basically, the training that NIHOTO has been provided in the skills for proficiency, the Act now has added to NIHOTO the responsibility to register and certify personnel and practitioners in the industry. So with the Act now, what we are trying to do is to, by our functions and powers, basically the Act has provided for collaboration for the relevant organizations, both public and private, to have a platform to discuss on how to cooperate and get the sector's personnel registered. This registration basically will provide for professional license to operate in the sector, just as it is obtainable in other disciplines. For example, as lawyers, we pay annual practicing fee. So also doctors, accountants, and all other professions. This is what is lacking in the tourism sector. So with the enabling law now that has given us this platform for all industry players, stakeholders, and industry players to now come and register. Then after the registration, now to certify them, After that, the old name that now has 2 years to now bring in to publish the register of names of all those that has been captured. So we will now publish the register of practitioners, qualified practitioners. So basically, after that, issue licenses for practice.
Thank you very much, Ms. Inua. We appreciate all your comments. We have
I'm
fast spent
sorry,
on time,
I'm
so
in the airport. I lost my mother, so I'm a little bit distracted. Thank you.
please accept my condolences, ma'am. Thank you
Please
so much
accept our
for your
condolences.
participation.
We're sorry for your loss.
Okay, so after hearing from all our guest speakers, we open the floor for questions. Please feel free to submit your questions in the chat. Or if you would like to tap on your microphones, you can also, we are open to hearing your questions and we'll do our best to address them. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay, I have a question. And my question is directed to you, Mrs. Noah. I would like to confirm from you whether you think that the institute is in the best position to, how do I put it? Is the institute in the best position to bet on who is best to come into the tourism profession?
Best position to
Practice. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Yes, I can hear you. But the last part, you said in the best position to do what?
Should the institute rather be focusing, should it rather be focusing more on trying to maybe grow its capacity as a training institute, or should it be investing its time in vetting who can practice in the tourism space, tourism and hospitality space? That's my question to you, ma'am.
The institute has been carrying its traditional training since from inception. But with this act, you know how the tourism, as I've said, the tourism and hospitality organization is, there has not been any form of getting all practitioners to be registered and to be certified. So with this act now that has been signed into law, we now have the mandate to now register and then provide enabling ground that is comfortable and give the confidence that investors and practitioners can have. Even before the signing of the act, a lot of letters has been sent to NIHOTO to either verify or to get approval of activities of personnel that maybe they want to apply for a work even outside Nigeria or something. So the institute have to give a reference or attestation in that respect. But with the registration now and the certification, all these issues will be resolved. And also we have a lot of foreigners that will come and set up their businesses. They are not paying anything for the government. Sometimes we don't even know them. So the data will now be provided readily if the practitioners and personnel are registered. We'll now have the data for governments to use for policy making and for budget making. You know, so now the training that NIHOTO is given in the skills manpower development cannot stop. Will be hand in hand with the registration work. That there is no any organization, there is no any parastatal that is doing. The only sister organization now that we have the Ministry of Tourism. The only sister organization is the two of us in the industry. So the other organization is marketing and promoting and coordinating tourism activities. So NAHOTRA has been given the mandate to register and certify personnel in order to streamline the industry. I don't know if
Thank you very much, Ma. Thank you so much for answering my question. Thank you. We have a question in the chats from Mrs. Eniton Riwani. It says, Section 45, subsection 2 says, a person who is not a registered hospitality, travel, and tourism practitioner under this act, but practices as such, or holds himself out as being registered and entitled to practice in that capacity, whether for reward or not, or takes use of any time, title, addition, or description, implying that he is so registered and authorized by law to do so, commits an offense under this act. While I doubt the constitutionality of this section, what constitutes holding? I believe that question is directed to you, Bisinua.
to me.
I believe.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, it's an offense. But before we talk of offense, the law has just been passed. So basically what we are doing now to of the industry, stakeholders, and the private organizations. On the NAHOTRA board, you can see that the both hospitality association and the tourism association are represented. So all the guidelines and the policies that are going to be implemented through its regulation for the implementation of the acts, they will be part and parcel of it. So at the end of the day, if we have to get everybody to get acquainted with the issue of registration and certification and the advantages for us, like in other disciplines, as I have said. So we are not talking of any penalty for now, what I'm just trying to say, until we get the implementation of this act running. It's been brought on board and knows what is expected of that person. You register, you are given time to register, and you are be certified. Much later, then the issue of licensing will now come. It's normal and has started operation. Then the penalty, the offense, and we have a tribunal, we have a panel and tribunal. Bring it can be resolved.
All right, thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much for your response. So I'll be handing over to Ms. Veronica to give the vote of thanks.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Efe. And thanks to everyone for participating. Before Ms. Veronica Ikosiobi takes over, she is the Assistant Secretary of the Travel, Tourism and Hospitality Committee. I want to say that 1 hour is actually not enough to discuss the ramification of this act. There are so many issues, and someone had even asked me earlier that what do we do? Do we go for an amendment immediately, or do we, wait to see how the act moves? And I'll take a cue from what Mrs. Enua said. This is a new act. Let us even see how it will be implemented, and the discussions will be ongoing. So this is just like a start of discussion. There are so many things. So for example, looking at the act, we don't have any word like continuing legal education. We do not have a provision saying that the chairman can co-opt members to the board, because if you have this power to co-opt, you're able to bring in seasoned experts to work with you and move the institute forward. So it's a continuing conversation. I would just thank the SBL for giving us this 1 hour. And at this point, we'll call on Mrs. SOB to give us a vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Veronica Ikesiobi. I would like to appreciate our speakers for their enthusiastic presentation. I believe that, and their contributions. I believe that the participants, we have learned a lot from their presentations. I would like to thank Mrs. Ogunbi, Mrs. Inua, Mr. Ebuchu, Mrs. Orago, and our moderator, Mrs. Otiko. And I also like to thank the SBL for hosting this meeting, the SBL weekly series. It's Fight Edifying. And I also like to thank the participants for making our time to join the meeting. And I hope to see you all at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Veronica. In closing, I would like to remind all of us that the future of the hospitality, tourism, and travel industry in Nigeria is in our hands. So let's continue to work together to ensure its growth and success. Thank you very much for joining us today, and I wish you all a productive rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Otiko. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It was our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't hear anything on this. Why is my sister? Kira ta je wannan kuma yana tare da yaro. Na gane. Tare da cikin kana dan miƙe. Kana nan. Sai ta ci sai mu sallah 35. 340 za fara. A jikin katin mu. Amma a jikin wannan for something. Sun ce ba su je wasan da yake question ba. So kin ga nan ne ma za ki dan fiji nan din is time akan can su sai ta miya kace a kina abu da ce nace to shi ke lalle da ku ana na su ki sanar da rufi sanar da rufi sai ki Yana da bin da da kuma da kuma. To ga da bayar ke ma hankalin ki amma inda suke da interest da suka da ai su ne suke commit aiki so su da za su buɗe ki zafi su ne ke da su buɗe ki ba mu haka kuna jin da ta oke a yaki dan su buɗe ki su suka rufe presentation ko a ya sai Yes, can I see this guy? I will take you. What we do now, like you know, never so the kind of everything. What about the baby?
This is data on the IPC. Unless I think it is not about it. That's the meeting. I mean, really nice to do it. We had a few 2 years ago. That why is it saying that? I come out of it. Let them on the fan. Fan, let them on the fan.
Wait. I do guide a private bus. Do guide a private bus. خلاص ما تشانها.
Problem, go buy a
Yawa ne ka ba musu. Wayo. Wai gunki ke wasu. Akala ka fita da zuloti. Fita janye na. Kini ma dinda. Wai. Garan bajiya. Wasai. Wai. Kini ma dinda. Asal. Wah, dia betul aku buat. Ini anak aku, cuma asal apa? Mungkin. Cuma asal apa? Ini anak bukan. Mungkin. Ada pun kesan pelan. Ada tu pun yang punya. Mungkin dia. Itu sah arbana, bukan kan semua semua. Weh, tu dah nanti aku cakap itu beri aku baik, jadi aku belajar sah, belajar sah arbana. Aku misalnya begini, weh. Weh, tentador, depois isso aí, depois kamu bisa begini, weh. Alwala kami sai ani ne do adon nan da so da ana wani da farba ko da kana ma ka ta kamata wallahi kun kana adu wari an su yau da zakka kula ana yanda shi da kana an san da kare su da sake ki a gari ana ba da yin gane ne an da su ai kula wai ha gane ne an da su ne ma
Dali ma ya bari ki yi mutum su fiya haka ne.
wai
Ya ma mai da ne. Ai yana nan ai.
Kun yi rakon ai rakon ne
Sun yi
su za su share
su suna yi su.
za su share
Sun
sun share
sai
za
su
su
share.
share
Ba, oke za su share ba ko ina za gani. Duk
da
ina
kuke
gani
din
wannan
ba
namu wanda
da kuke din ba
suna putin ma a wannan nasu wadi din su.
wai ba na din za a gani lokacin da kuke yi amma yanzu an gama ba
An
sai
gama.
sai sun
Sai su yi post.
sai dai zaki shiga wannan naku kuma in zaki shiga website naku
Namu.
eh
Na hoto.
amma an ba su yi ma sun yi display ba ba zai yi ba sai dai wanda yake yin recording zai yi share kin gane ko
Haka.
shine zaki amma ba haka ba yanzu za su tura muku a mail aiki recording da zuwa yi mako za su tantance su suke sai su tura muku a cikin mail sai ki buɗe ki tura muku a mail sai ki immediately say post
Suna immediately.
wannan wanda ya dace ma official za su samu wannan agenda sun samu in san ba su bi gida to me ya faru kuma wata zo ba shan wani abu ne sai nono
Nono ne na so baya cin komai.
su kuka shi nawa Mashallah. Allah sarki. Akwai yawa ba. You are the one that you to and you send it and you want to keep it and it's open to that if that for them not to be able to put it out. You are the one that's you get them to put it. Integrate the area about it. Your staff will be just an need. I swear to God, you know, I'll send it to the council and to judge minister. Let you take it easy. I will attack it for the village. This what I did. Once we are supposed to be able to when this is the Yamuna, including get Amina will get it to be enough for teachers. Come on. Not your man, to get them with the concept. I attach a program. At the airport, I'm not going to fully experiencing it. That's not fully meanwhile, that's already a computer that by the time I started working, but me, I didn't go to teach because maybe that was this. I want the person is not. And here look at all there. Monday, the last month, is a young woman and finish.
akwai duka sama na bude na rage kaya na ba su. Suna da nama da wuri da abin da nasu da ba na cima. Sai suka alawu ina kawai suka ce ba su ID card ina. Wallahi bata kalla ko ni na ba ma ta mimi ta bani. Na shiga kawai a wurin da za ka nuna ba. Mata miki wannan bana ta sa ko ne na ke bayarwa wannan kana da bari ba su zubar da shi ga shi na da tsada shi ne sai ne kafin kana okay shi ne 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 ke ko nan da kina ce na ku dai ka bani okay yau ba ya ne babana ya gaji ko Oh, I love it. What is the total means? Hey guys, suna zuwa jirgin da da wani jirgin da sai aka sa su a ba kuma amma za mu gashi kuma da safe ina na tafi a da safe wannan ne da yamma da safe Ranar zuwa ma ina dama na ga Jibo yana ta kokari wai wannan shi kude. Wallahi kina duk wayannan sun rikice da yin nan. Ni ma na ce mishi ma ya gaya miki yanda ma aka yi. Don wai yana ta kira wannan a ɗaukawa. Kin san mene in mun isa a can sai mu bude tukuna. Isa mu bude tukuna kafin mu wuce. Ki tuna dai ni ba zan iya son tuna ba. Yawwa. Ina ta kira Apis kina kira za ki ga sun kwasa makin na su dauka. Ai da sai da kuka bunya kuli ne. Kamu ma hannu burani. Buradan da su. Na gama tuntuni da na sai wannan ina da na zo tuntuni. Ina mutum za su fito wannan. Haka. Bai ba ta ba. Kuma zan kira shi ma fa da muke yi wannan. Ya gaya miki. Ni ma wannan kira shi da kuma sai ga matan nan tana kan rana tana cikin da okay, office to join in 1 hour. 12,000.
Attention, please. This is a one announcement of United Nigeria Airlines. Flight 250502. United Nigeria Airlines, flight 250502 to Enugu is set for boarding. We request all passengers checking on this service to reach station for order. Thank you.
Wannan nace 1000 kawai na bashi ni ce ni ta bashi na pass ni ta bashi. Da ya faɗa mai. Wani wannan agogon maganar nan ne kika siya? Wannan agogon na waya? Wanda ba shi ba ko? Ok, sai yana yi kamar na waya. Wow, Jonathan ne? Tun ba yau ba? Ko kwanan nan? Ok, shi ne ba tun lokacin can ba. Ok. Ok. Gashi ya ɗan tsage. Ai, to. Sai ka caji na shi. Tablet ko? Na. Wacce muna shi sabo wanda ba da ba sun ci muna da gare ku na
With so many?
To all of my
Empty. Patient for patients. Means having an AC. Patient for patients. Patient. Yeah, I can't tell you the shit. My goodness.
Yes, you have no problem.
Patients. Patient. May teeth and go may see.
Thank you for being patient. That's a patient.
For patients. Okay. Patients. Eva TIENT.
Say they give you some second.
Okay, ENT patients. Me gold, like mata transfer ba? Oh, ayya, okay. Ayya. 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 Very efficient. da duk su jire har haɗo iman su har jire a gari da ko ta ɗan samu kusa da ta kusa da samu zan gaya mata ban same ta ba ni kuma ban sake bugawa ba Fatima sun ce wallahi ayya anti farbe tana ta ce duk sun je su uku ayya ai na gaya mata na ce ai mutane yawa ai mutum ya su ne kullum suna kula da ita kwanan da na jima mata na gaya ai yawa mata so yanzu Asma'u akwai kayan da na kuma suka sayar wasu an sayar wani ba su shi Asma'u ne nake tausaya mata kamar mutuwa na da antipathic mutuwa na da mutuwa antipathic da ne ba Asma'u Wallahi. Suna gindin maman ga yara suna nan ga yanzu an raba Asma'u da yawa Allah na tuba ubangijin rahama. A cikin wannan zaki ga babu kuma Asma'u. Kuma ba ta maman da wallahi. Kullum suna kusancin su ma kusancin su. Allah sai ta kai a kansa. Allah sarki. Wani ma ba ta tare da shi ba da Asma'u sai ta tare da kusa da sai ta ibo da take so ina so ta kai Asma'u da zai da yawa sannan da ta ce ya ka a cikin ciya tana makaranta ne ya tana ga take da cikin kana ma ba ita ta samu kai ta ce kana so ce baki abu ma haram ya ta ce da ce ya ta ka ina ba kina ba ta ce Allah ya ba ta sai ta zabe ta ni ma haka sai ce sarki wanda su kakaci da su antibiotic a yin suka kawo abubuwan sai wanda na ɗauka tukunna wani kan yi a mutum marzi muri ya daidai ya mai da gida da ya yi
na haɗa ba laji. Ai shi mutum ba ce a tana ba ki kaya kuma kuma na ba ki da gudu wani kan sa suke da student.
Yawwa.
Ta ba ba ni ke kan da ina zuwa church ina zuwa church.
Ba ta je
da jaka da komai sai ina zuwa church.